Ecstasy in one camp, agony in other. 263 for 3 is what England has managed on day one in the first test, which is being played in M.A. Chidambaram Stadium in Chennai. And to discuss all of it, I have of course been joined in with Monty Panesar, the former England spinner, and of course our cricket expert. Monty, initial thoughts: 263 on day one, Joe Root still alive. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's been a great day for England. The wicket was kind of flat, and I thought the inclusion initially of not having Kuldeep Yadav, in the team was actually a reflection on the Indian team. They don't feel very confident, and they think that this England team can sort of hurt him, and they hurt him today big time. They really. Joe Root, again, the big battle was Joe Root against Ashwin, and he swept him well. He hit him for a six as well. But I think the real disappointment was Ishant Sharma. He bowled accurately, couldn't pick up any wickets, wasn't as threatening as we've seen him before. And you kind of ask yourself the question, why did Virat Kohli go back to his old ways of just picking experienced players when he could have picked the likes of Mohammad Siraj, who was, Bob did fantastically well in Brisbane?
Well, absolutely. I was coming to that only because Monty, just before the start of the game, Akshar Patel had a knee injury and he had to go out. And in place of him, Shahbaz Nadeem and Rahul Chahar were included in the squad. Whereas Shahbaz Nadeem was also asked to be in the playing 11. Now, do you think that was a right call, or as you rightly mentioned, that India should have gone with somebody like Kuldeep Yadav?
I think India, should have gone with someone like, possibly Kuldeep Yadav. But again, you don't know how he's bowling in the nets. And then, you kind of ask yourself the question, like, finger spinners have done really well on these pitches. It's like probably the top 5 or top 10 grounds in world cricket where spinners do really well. The average of Ashwin on this pit on this ground is like at 31. I think he averages 31, and the spinners averages 33. So he's doing better than the normal people. But
right,
it's just the second spinner. That backup of a second spinner just wasn't good enough today. Nadeem Shah, he bowled great lines, but then he erred on the straight side. He wasn't getting that ball to turn prodigiously, so he could have. I think his natural line should have been slightly outside off stump. If it pitches on fourth stump line and it runs on with the arm, he's got a chance of a bit of LBW if it's in line. And if it isn't, then he can just bowl to his two men on the drive. It's more kind of an attritional day of cricket where you look to go at one, 2.5, 3 and over. And if he bowls slightly straight, it's kind of like if he bowls on middle stump, it'll just straighten on to off, and you can actually clip that ball quite comfortably. I thought his line was too straight on this sort of surfaces. Ashwin needed a backup from the second spinner. Surinder Washington, again, he kind of felt a little bit like he wasn't sure, what line he should bowl. He bowled too straight over the wicket. If he's going to bowl that line, he needs to. It's the angle, it's not the turn on the pitch, And I just thought that the backup spinners were disappointing today.
Absolutely. And Monty, I'm glad that you mentioned this side of it, but I want to give it to the batsmen as well. Dom Sibley and of course Joe Root, 63 for 2. And then they took it from there. And of course, that 200-run partnership. What do you have to say about somebody like Dom Sibley and its third consecutive 100 for the captain Joe Root? 100 in the 100 test, becomes the ninth player in the history of the sport to do it. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think Joe Root's been in prolific form. He's scored already over 500 runs. And over the last 3 or 4 years, he hasn't actually got to 1,000 runs. So he looks very much on target to do it this year. I think it's just, Virat Kohli, there's a lot of pressure on his captaincy. He wasn't sure, what should I do? And it's the first time we see Virat Kohli a little bit hesitant, he's a little bit sort of the friendly side of Virat Kohli that we're seeing, and he wasn't aggressive in his captaincy, and I think that's a sign that he wasn't sure about his game plan. Why would you play two spinners, off spinners as well? It just doesn't make sense to me. It's like if they if they bat well against Ashwin, then what ends up happening is that it actually makes it easier to bat against Washington Sundar, and I think that's the game plans they didn't think, and I think they underestimated this England team. They thought even if we win the toss, having two off spinners, and we'll get them out some way. But I think it's been a terrible day for India.
Monty, I'm glad that you talked about captaincy because what we saw today was not the best sign for India because Virat Kohli was there as the stand-in captain. But with him, we also saw somebody like Ajinkya Rahane in picture. Then we saw Ravichandran Ashwin also chipping in, sharing his ideas. Then Rohit Sharma was also talking to the bowlers. Do you think a lot of minds probably scramble the thoughts?
Yeah, that could be possibly the reason. And also, the pressure maybe Virat Kohli's putting himself under, thinking, I need to prove a point that I am the number one captain in this team. And sometimes it's nice just to take a seat back and just let the team flow as it is. And he's got to make that judgment on the team and how the energy is flowing. He may just think, oh, the team's changed from when I left in Adelaide. It is actually, right. I don't have as much authority maybe, or people, the leadership team has grown. He needs to adapt his captaincy style to that as well. But I just think he needs to have a few game plans under his sleeve. It was very much like, oh, England will make a mistake and we will get a wicket. And he kind of like went into that kind of mindset. And I just think he needs to just think, right, if we're going to play two off spinners and they get hold of, they bat really well. What are our game plans? He needs to have different game plans for Washington, a different one for Ashwin, and that's going to, be very creative. Bumrah bowled really well. He looked threatening. He looked like he was going to get these wickets. But Ishant Sharma, who's a leading, 90 Test matches, he right. needs to. I just thought he bowled economically, but he just wasn't threatening. For someone to be a senior bowler. I thought Mohammad Siraj would have been much more threatening, and he's a young player. So that's something I think, Virat Kohli needs to have a word with Ishant Sharma and think, why aren't you not threatening? What is it about your bowling? Talk to me. And this is going to be the skill of his captaincy. He's got to turn this around, and he's got to turn it around very quickly.
Absolutely. Virat Kohli needs to turn it around and turn it around very quickly if India is actually looking to win this one or even give a fight to England. Monty, our next segment is, of course, best tweets of the game. The first and second, I think we have already discussed. The first one is coming from Aditya, and he's talking about that everybody seems to be appreciating Joe Root, but we need to appreciate Dom Sibley as well. How good was he? And at the same time, people are also talking about the inclusion of Mohammad Siraj in playing 11. But particularly, Monty, I want to speak about the third tweet, which is coming from Bibhu. And he's saying why there was no bowling change between 62 to 78th over, despite leaking runs with Nadeem and Sundar. What do you think? What was the logic behind? Because the ball was a little old, and probably we could have tried somebody like Jasprit Bumrah or Ishant Sharma for reverse swing, but that did not happen. What do you think? What was the reason behind the same?
Well, I think what it was is that he wanted to save the seam bowlers fresh, because he'd rather have them with the new ball. And also he knows that tomorrow is going to be first session is a big session for India. And he's thinking, let me save them up for tomorrow. They can burst in and really, go heavy with the new ball. And I'm sure it's that sort of psychological thing of thinking, well, yep, the captain's given us a rest. We're supposed to actually put another shift in before the second new ball, but we haven't. But tomorrow morning, he's like, you better come fresh because I've given you that extra rest. And tomorrow morning, you better be prepared. You the seam bowlers, guys, you find a way of moving this ball. And he probably have a quiet word with Nadeem Shah and, Sundar, just say, look, guys, I know, it's probably been a difficult day for you. Just whatever cobwebs you have in your mind. It's like the Indian mentality, you can't be like after the 5 days, analyze your game overnight. There needs to be a switch in mentality, attitude. Tomorrow morning, we've got to see this aggressive India that we saw in Australia. It was a bit subdued. There should have been a bit into the, it's a bit nicey. It's like we're the number one team and we're going to tell you, you come to our turf and we are going to dominate. We're going to tell you how hard it is on our surfaces.
Well, absolutely. I think I need to read the scorecard on this occasion. England is 263 for 3 in their 89.3 overs. Dom Sibley was asked to leave the field because he was LBW by, of course, Jasprit Bumrah in the last over of day one. 87 of 286 deliveries, 12 boundaries for him. Joe Root is still standing tall at 128 runs in 197 deliveries, 14 boundaries, and a six. Almost every bowler that India has, they have utilized it, but only Jasprit Bumrah and Ravichandran Ashwin have been able to get those big wickets. What can happen, Monty? My last question to you: what can we expect tomorrow? What kind of score would England be targeting by the end of day's play?
Look, I think England will be looking. Look, the average score on Chennai is about 350 first inning, 350 to 400. I think they'll be very happy if we can get to 400. You know, they could potentially go further than that if they have a great day. You know, and that's great. But I think India will be looking to think we've got 100 runs. We've got 100 runs to get 7 wickets. That's how they've got to think of the match situation. It's a mindset. They've got to think the target. It's like a 5th-day pitch. They've got to think they've got 100 runs to win the Test match, and we got 7 wickets to win this game. That's the attitude this India team need to have if they want to get themselves back into this Test match.
Well, I totally and I completely agree with what Monty said. And that's it from our day one show that is brought to you by, of course, Monty Channel and Sports Tiger. Do join us up against tomorrow as England captain Joe Root will be joining either Ollie Pop or somebody like Ben Stokes with him on the, of course, morning of Saturday. It will be interesting to see. Thank you so much, Monty, for taking your time. We'll be joining you back very, very soon.
Thank you very much.